So, Ryan, are these dogs closer than last year's dogs, the 22, 23, 21 dogs? Kirby says he wants to see fire. They've had a bunch of skull sessions. He was pretty positive in the first meeting with the media. Maybe that's because he doesn't get to see us for a while.
Yeah, well,
or see you. He likes to see me.
Yeah, okay. I figured he'd be, a little grumpier when he strolled in, but he was in good spirits. Look, he always wants to see fire out of these guys. That's what he wants. They got the Bloody Tuesday. There's no. He will find any way to figure out a way to pump them up, to hype them up, to get them going,
to question them.
But look, the truth of the matter is, why does he really want to see fire right now? There's a lot of unknown with this team, and there's a few guys that are going to be out that are likely going to be starters when the fall rolls around and the season gets going. Younger guys are going to have opportunities right now to make a name for themselves, to get the attention of these coaches. But look, this season has been ending in good ways for Georgia. Yeah. National championship, record-breaking Orange Bowl win. Yeah. Although they didn't want to be there, record-breaking Orange Bowl win. Now they're coming off of losing their starting quarterback in the SEC championship, winning that, and then going and losing to Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, and like we were talking about off camera earlier, in an embarrassing way. It was an embarrassing loss for the Dogs.
It was a bad loss.
And so he wants to see fire. They want to correct that. Georgia's not going away, right? People have been discounting Georgia a little bit.
We don't know.
We don't know. But all these teams are in a similar situation. It is packed out here.
Yeah. Millage is packed. Yes. We don't know what we don't know. There are questions for sure. But we don't know what we don't know doesn't mean it's positive or negative. It could be either of the two. You were rambling and I kind of stopped you.
I was about at the end of my rant.
Well, the thing about it is, Ryan, the most important thing, we've talked about this a lot, is can they have a cohesive offensive line? When you start that building block, from that point forward, everything kind of, I wouldn't say falls into place, but Oscar Delp can make plays. Lawson Lucky is going to make plays. But, is the new wide receiver Branch, is he going to make plays? Same thing with the new guy from A&M. Are they going to make plays? Well, they're not going to make plays if Gunnar Stockton's running for his life. And we saw that. It was trivia. Okay. We saw that Georgia did not protect the way that they need to, and that really was the challenge, I think, this time, a year ago. It was too difficult to protect. It was too difficult to run the ball more than anything. That was the real problem.
Yeah, it starts there. If defenses start to disrespect your run game a little bit, they're going to drop back a little bit more. And they played some really good defense.
I was just going to say, that Ole Miss defense was really solid.
Are
they going to play a defense like that this coming year? I don't know.
Is Texas's defense going to be as good as it was last year? It was one of the best in the country. Had one of the two or three best secondaries.
The oddness of it all is they gutted it out against Texas twice, and they couldn't get the win against Ole Miss. They couldn't get the win against Notre Dame. They scored.
Texas gave Ohio State a run for its money there at the end.
Yeah, they scored a pile. Well, the best team won last year. I don't know if there's an obvious team. We were talking about this earlier today. Penn State. Would you rather be Penn State or would you rather be Tennessee? I think you'd rather be Penn State in that situation. Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. That Big Ten's going to have to produce at least one team. It could be two. The SEC, you look at Georgia, Texas specifically, and then probably Alabama, Tennessee. What's LSU? Well, LSU is like in purgatory right now. So when Kirby starts talking about fire, and we're driving past the practice fields right now, I don't hear him screaming, but it's 7:00. So, they've got to get it going now. This team is not so talented that they're just going to waste everybody. That's another thing that he talked about today was, maybe somebody will put it together and kind of do to college football what they did to college football for 2 years, 3 years really. But it doesn't seem like that anymore. And these guys are going to have to learn how to fight.
Well, yeah. Well, when you rewind to a year ago around this time, a little bit even before, right when that first transfer portal window got over with in January, everyone was talking about Ohio State. Everyone was talking about how stacked they were. They were the clear favorite to win it all.
Yeah.
And even though the season was a little rockier than maybe a lot of
They
people
did not
foresaw.
have a good regular season.
No, the regular season. I mean, they were 10-2, and they didn't go to the Big Ten championship
They did
game.
not have a good regular
But they
season.
were the most talented team, and the most talented team ended up prevailing in the playoffs when it really mattered. Georgia wasn't that last year.
They weren't, but Kirby's point today was, and he's right, but he said, I know everybody, I don't know if he said y'all, but he said everybody thinks it's about who the most talented team is, but, a lot of it's about effort and so forth. That's true, but, I can give all the effort I want. I'm not as talented as Malachi Starks. You don't need me playing DB, right? You got to have the players, and so the question is, can this staff take what they've got and maximize, the opportunity there? You should maximize your dollar. Go to Red Zone when you're in town in Athens, or you can go to UGARedZone.com. Just type in Red Zone Dawg Post. You'll see it from there. Scott and Mindy will see you, maybe at the door, maybe not. They're always flying around, but a bunch of stuff that you can't get anywhere else is where you can get. You can get it at Red Zone. That's on Clayton Street downtown. Make sure that you're going by there when you're in town for baseball, or at this stage baseball or G-Day. And these guys are not going to be the most. They are not obviously the most talented team.
No,
so it is going to matter if they fight. Now they've got that DNA in theory.
I don't know that there is an obvious most talented team yet.
I don't think there is.
We'll get to watch bits and pieces of these teams in the spring, but it's tough when they're just playing against each other. On paper, they're just as talented as any of these other top teams. I don't think that there's necessarily a big separator. You don't think that
Texas is more talented than Georgia? Like Arch Manning is more talented than Gunner.
Yeah, he's more talented than Gunner, but as a whole, I don't see the Texas, like maybe slightly, but I don't. If they are, it's very marginal. I mean, they've lost a lot of important pieces.
The problem for Texas is they're going to Athens. If they were to play them again, it'd probably be in Atlanta. And but we don't know. They could play in the Orange Bowl or whatever. I don't know what the bowls are this time.
They could play in the playoffs.
They could play in the playoffs. Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
They could play in Texas or
Georgia.
They
could play. They could play in Austin.
They could play in Atlanta again. I mean, there's all sorts of ways.
But those two are the ones to beat. I mean, like the notion that Alabama is a team to beat in the SEC, they are a team to beat, but they're not the team to beat. It's Georgia and Texas right now.
You got to wait and see what Kalen DeBoer's cooking up in year 2. What's going to be Alabama's identity? That was a big question last year.
Well, they lost.
They couldn't really figure it out.
They lost a good running back. They're
going through a quarterback change, which could end up being a good thing. But the Jalen Milroe roller coaster had its highs and lows. It had its highs against Georgia. And so I don't know as much
LSU
about them.
too, and like that brings me to LSU. I mean, LSU always has tons of talent, but there's a disconnect between the skill at LSU. You can make the argument that Nussmeier's the best quarterback coming back in the SEC.
He's one of the Heisman favorites. He actually is the Heisman favorite if you want to go bet on it. No, for the country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the betting favorite right now. We're tied for it.
Like you're not supposed to do that right there. And I understand they're in a sorority or something. You're not just supposed to pull over on the side of the road. And the Athens County cop didn't care. Like, why did they pull out right in front of the cop? Why would you do that? What's happening around here?
He didn't care.
He didn't care at all. But
they're on the loop.
But Nussmeier and that LSU's always got guys. That's never a problem. But the question is, why are they getting killed by Alabama? Why are they, sort of not performing? And that's the part that it wasn't like that for Georgia last year. They won the league. But there were aspects of why is this not clicking right now? And LSU and Brian Kelly, I mean, it's an important season for him. I think I don't think it's overly important for Josh Heupel at Tennessee necessarily, but Josh Heupel, to some degree Shane Beamer, Josh Heupel, yeah, but Billy Napier, it's important for sure. Brian Kelly is very important for sure. I think in Kentucky, no one cares about Kentucky watching this video, but it's an important moment. Kirby was talking about today as well, Ryan, that him and Stoops are like the old people in the room. Kirby's only been at Georgia for a decade. And
he's
like
the longest tenured coach in the SEC.
Well,
right now.
Stoops, yeah.
Or Stoops rather.
But he was talking about how difficult the league is and how much it's not going to get easier. I don't think it is.
I mean,
how is it going to get easier?
Someone asked him that today, and about how was it a combination of did y'all just underperform in certain areas last year? Yes, but also yes to it's only getting more difficult.
We're
getting converged.
What's happening?
Here,
I have a green light. Just don't walk out in front of my car.
It's a combination of they underperformed in certain areas, and it's just not going to get any easier. The schedule is
not.
just more loaded. When you add 2 huge programs to the conference and you get rid of the divisions.
And look at Oklahoma.
Well, they
just got destroyed.
They got destroyed in some of those games. But when you got to play a Texas and an Alabama and Ole Miss and Tennessee all in the same year,
Auburn.
And like he mentioned earlier today, if you watch the press conference, they had to deal with the out of conference game with Clemson. They don't have that this season, but they're going to be a good spot right there. They're going to be years.
Because I win, Ryan. I'm a winner.
There's going to be years where the schedule just seems daunting, and on paper, this one is daunting. It's not quite as daunting because you take away the Clemson game and you flip away the home and the road schedule, and now it's a little bit easier in terms of travel, but it's only going to be like this. There's going to be years where they play LSU and Tennessee and Oklahoma. And some of these programs are going to be very good, and this is just the new normal. And Kirby was judged on a certain scale before these changes, and now you kind of have to reset your judgment on the way that they're performing, because it's just more difficult to win in college football now than it was 2 years ago when they were hoisting trophies.
Well, and Oregon won all of their games in the regular season and just got absolutely their skull rammed in the sidewalk over here by Oregon State, by Ohio State
and Rose Bowl.
And that was it. Like, there was nothing. I mean, like, what's Dan Lanning thinking right now about his team and his program? He's done a really good job there, but there's going to be pressure for him to win too. When Kirby, look, my job's not to just like look at Kirby and see what he's like that day, because it's only one indication of things. But my suspicion is they know they're in for a fight this fall, and there is a particular DNA in this program he's taken. I mean, Kirby's a fighter. Whether it's fun or not, Kirby's ready to fight at any time. And they're going to have to use this month and a half or whatever it is to develop, to get ready for these fights. And the good news, if you want to call it that, Ryan, is they play Marshall, and then they play directional school, and then they go to Neyland. And Tennessee's, that's going to be a real challenge for Tennessee. If for all of Georgia's faults, and there are plenty, a lot of other teams have faults too. In 21, everybody thought Alabama would repeat. That was the sort of betting favorite. They just won the national championship. Bryce Young was going to be a better quarterback, and in many ways he was, than Mac Jones. But, this season doesn't – it just feels like a real big battle royal. That'll be tough.
And part of that is the quarterback position. It's because out of all of these big programs and if you look at the betting favorites, and, I'll throw Clemson in there too. Yeah. Even though I don't –
they're like
I believe in that. They're like 8 or something like that. The only teams returning their guys are Clemson, Tennessee, and Penn State. But Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, they're all starting over with new quarterbacks.
Yeah, Alabama's got a lot of challenges.
They've got a lot of challenges, and you don't always know when a new that's one of the most important positions in sports, the most impactful positions in sports. When that changes, things change a lot. Now, people have a lot of faith in Arch Manning, and that's why Texas
he's good.
And he's really good, and people have a lot of faith in the Ohio State situation, and they think that Julian Sayin can be good, kind of similar to the way they projected with Bryce Young. Right. That's the projection you're getting right now with Ohio State. That's the way they're being viewed.
Where is everyone with, like, nationally? So I thought Gunnar played pretty well against Notre Dame. I don't think he got a lot of help, to be honest.
No, he was under pressure a lot. But they couldn't run the ball.
They couldn't run the ball. I think you would have had a better shot with a healthy Carson Beck in that game because of the situation. You would be throwing it more often. Gunnar is going to. So it's not always healthy to do this, but I will do it. Gunnar, when Stetson was sort of flopping around figuring things out in 2020, no one wanted him to do anything. They didn't want him to run it. They didn't want him to throw it. But you could see his athleticism. Gunnar doesn't have that, but he's going to have to put it together the way Stetson did in order to grind his way to victory. I mean, like, there's no specific way or path to get to the championship and hoist banners and hoist trophies and raise banners. You have to figure out what that is during the spring and the summer and all that stuff. And for Gunnar, if he's a starter, I'm assuming he will be, they have to figure out what his strengths are. I've seen enough of Gunnar Stockton to know not a lot really bothers him. No. and I think that's not a lot bothered Carson Beck either, and I think it's they've got to figure out how to play to Gunner's strengths, and they got 9 months to do that.
They got 9 months to figure out what their identity is going to be on the offensive side of the football.
It better be running it a little bit.
And we saw immediately in that Texas game. And part of that is just, okay, well, Gunner Stockton doesn't have a lot of experience. He's getting thrown into a situation.
Run. And Kirby yelled at him. He was all over the offensive line.
But you saw they wanted Gunner to run, and then it opened things up. Trevor Etienne had statistically his best game.
That was his best
It was his best game. Nate Frazier ran the ball really well that day, too. He just didn't get as many carries.
That's the part that's so hard to understand, really. I know it's sports in the game. How Texas is really good defensively, or they were this past season.
Yeah.
And yet Georgia seemed to have enough success or pretty good success against Texas running it, Ryan. I mean, they had an explosive run with ETN down the right-hand side, or whatever I would call it, this Georgia sideline. So they had explosion in that game. They missed it so often on these other games. I mean, if Gunner does not make a bad mistake, they don't go to overtime. Georgia's taking knees to win that game.
Yeah, exactly.
The game's over.
That interception was really rough.
Almost cost them the conference.
That was an inexperienced mistake by Gunner.
Kirby they blamed it on the coaches, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he can take a sack right there, and it's a different story.
Sure.
So
you're punting.
There just was a lack of cohesion with this team. It was inconsistent. I mean, the performances on a weekly basis were just all over the place, and in halves, like you see in the Alabama game.
Yeah.
Two completely different halves. Same thing with and it was the first game of the season, but the Clemson game, they couldn't move the ball in the first half, and then the second half, they moved it with ease on the Tigers. So it was one of those things where they were all over the place, and then against the best team that they played twice, that was some of their most successful, especially running the ball.
Here's my thing with Georgia under Kirby is they do seem to rise to moments.
Yes.
I just, full disclosure, for me, the Ole Miss game, it felt like a moment for Mississippi and not necessarily for Georgia. And Ole Miss played well in that game. I think they rose to the moment at Alabama. I think they just lost the game. They did not rise to the moment against Notre Dame for whatever reason. But two, I have to say, two fumbles that directly led to 14 points, and that you can't give away 17-ish, 21 points in a game and expect to win. We were watching baseball earlier. You can't expect to give even 4 outs in an inning and kind of like get out of it unharmed. I mean, when you start making mistakes, or the other team makes you make mistakes, it's a problem. I mean, I'm not gonna. The Notre Dame loss to me was not dissimilar to Texas in 18, where obviously it's the same location, but it was just like, what, this is, they're not playing like themselves. However, this year they were playing like themselves. That's just who they were.
That's who they were in a lot of moments throughout the season. And
how can they become not that?
Well, I think that this is I think I said in a different video, it's a reset. I mean, the personnel is changing, the coaching is not, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. They're getting to restart. That was, like you said, they rise to the moments. And
they do.
They had their back against the wall. They're the underdog going into Austin. They rise up to that moment. There's plenty of other instances like that. Kirby's going to make them realize that this is a moment that, look, it was bad the way that 2024 went. That's not their standard. The way it ended is certainly not their standard. So I think that going back to what we started this video with, that's where the fire comes from. Are you going to rise into those moments like they did at Austin, like they did in the SEC Championship, when it's like, oh my God, Carson Beck's out, Gunner Stockton's coming in.
He did.
This Texas team is not allowing them to move the ball. The team, the fans, everyone rose to the occasion when that happened, and I think that's what he's looking for with this squad right now.
Look, I don't know why I started thinking about this, but I do think about when I was in college and you watched Nebraska try to fight their way through in their times when they won 3 national championships in like a 5-year period. The Gators at the time, they had some really, really good teams that failed in big moments at times. The Florida teams in the late 2000s with Tebow and them, I mean, as good as they were, 2 national championships in a 4-year period, their loss to Alabama in 2009 was a beating. And their 07 season was not a great year, 9-4, and Georgia thumped them. Alabama in 10, in 13, There are times when you're a really good program, you don't win the national championship. Georgia's a really good program. They did not win the national championship. Did not have a great season. The conclusion of the season was not great. I think the only team that lost that had a good close to the season was Clemson, to be honest with you. I mean, they played Texas well. So Georgia has to figure out how to, because now this is the NCAA basketball tournament. How do you have a successful close to the season when you're not cutting down the nets? And that's always hard. In basketball world, we've understood everybody doesn't win the national championship. In football, everybody's understood that, but then you can go win the Sugar Bowl or go win the Orange Bowl or whatever. Things are changing now.
You get your conference tournaments in basketball, but then it can
all
end
that
like
matters.
that. It can end like that. All of a sudden, 2.5 hours and it's over, and you're out in Durham or Lexington or something like that.
Yeah, and Furman's popping
Florida
threes.
Gulf Coast,
hitting threes
dunking
on
and lobbing. So it can end a lot more suddenly in basketball, and with football, it's a week-to-week thing. But
if they don't have the fire in the spring, if they don't set the tone now. And I heard Kirby today when I was coming back from baseball. He's not going to let up. This is not a Kirby Smart question. Well, I guess it really is. But can he translate his passion and his excitement and veracity to the team? Can you teach that? Because you have it doesn't mean that you can always teach it. He's done a great job of that through the years, but the fire is going to be something that they're going to have to do this spring.
Yeah, and we're going to know. He'll tell us if he doesn't feel like he's seeing that fire. He doesn't tell us a lot, but he'll tell us when he's disappointed with what because he wants them to hear it, and he knows that they're looking at their phones. It's partially for them, but if things aren't looking great in the next 2 weeks, he's going to talk about, we don't have experience at this position, and we're not getting enough out of this and that. So if they're not bringing that, we'll get a good idea of it. But this is a good opportunity to just move on. College football's changed. It's going to be tough. They're going to have another big season. And I think that there's some excitement in the unknown, right? Because
you sound like Aaron Rodgers now.
I'm just trying to give people a positive spin on things. There's a lot of negativity going around.
There is plenty of negativity. I don't know that I am falling negative or positive. I don't think I have to take a position necessarily, other than to say it's different.
Yeah, it is.
And it's going to be a different Ohio State. And there's the problem for Ohio State and Texas is whoever wins that game is going to be number one. But the problem for Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, September does not define your season. Now it's only about December and beyond, and let's just see how this goes. But Kirby wants fire. We want food, so we're going to close this right now. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.